He said it himself. He wants to feel wanted. What he means by that is he wants to play. I think he will play at Dundee. I think they've invested heavily in him for Dundee in terms of the wages. I think Celtic would be paying the majority of his wages. But of course, Dundee will have to add to that as well. And I think he'll score goals at Dundee. I think it's a really good move for him. I don't think he'll play for Celtic again. You just said there, Rob, that they gave him the year's contract.
That sounds like a bad bit of business, doesn't it? When they've weighed him in with an extra year, and they're going to end up paying most of his salary, you would imagine, while he's on loan at Dundee. It doesn't sound like a fantastic bit of business for Celtic.
No, they want to go in a different direction. I think they see Leigh as, you look at Kyogo, he leads from the front, he go and press, he got that high press, he's got that great fitness levels about him.
So does Griffiths not fit in anymore?
I don't think he fits the system in terms of that high press and the demands that Postecoglou puts on his players. I think it takes superb fitness levels. Abada on the right hand side. We saw Christie on the left, but obviously we believe he will move on. So in terms of his achievements, he's scored goals all his career. He'll continue to score goals. He's only 31. And I actually think, it's a good thing for Leigh. I don't think he was playing at Celtic, and he was booed by a section of the crowd a couple of weeks ago. I think from a personal point of view, there can't be anything worse than being booed by your own supporters. I think that would have hurt him mentally. So I think it's a good move for Leigh, and I think he'll get goals next season at Dundee.
Football is cruel, social media is cruel, and some of the feedback we've been getting about Leigh Griffiths is cruel. Good riddance is the simple response from one, and another saying to us, done what he could, but I think he comes with too much baggage. I think we would all hope for Leigh Griffiths at the age of 31 that he can kick-start here in new football surroundings.
First of all, it doesn't matter what we want or what we hope. He has to do it himself. He has to want it. He has to want it more than anyone else, Rob. There's no point in James McPake saying, I want you to do well, I'm desperate for you to do well. He's got to be desperate to do well. You can't give someone that. That's the challenge he has to take on board. He also has to hold his hands up and think, I've made errors over the years. I've made mistakes, I've made the wrong choices, I've done the wrong things. But you can't affect that anymore. Put that behind you if you possibly can. You can only influence and focus on what's ahead of you. And that is the big challenge. When people are sceptical and when there's critics out there, Rob, the only way to answer them is on the pitch. And Leigh Griffiths' best way to answer those critics and people who are sceptical about him is by scoring goals. But he has to want to go out and do it. It isn't just going to happen because he's Leigh Griffiths and he's going back to Dundee. He's got to really work at it. He's got to go in there and be an example and show people what he's all about, even his teammates. Because if he comes in from Celtic and he's a little bit lazy in training, or he's not doing the run, or he's not doing the work, players will become frustrated with him. There's no doubt he's a natural finisher. He's a wonderful finisher. But this last 3-4 years he's been deteriorating. His goals return has dropped, his game time has dropped. So he's now at a stage where he's at a major crossroads and he has to decide what he's going to do. Is he going to kick on, or is he going to be the Leigh Griffiths people remembered 5-6 years ago? James McPake has a personal relationship with him. He's got to try and work his magic with him, but Leigh Griffiths has to be careful he doesn't take that too far. He's putting a lot of trust into him, and the only way he'll answer is by scoring goals.
And nobody, John, wants their career to fade away. Nobody wants to, he used to be a great finisher, didn't he? But he can't do it anymore because he's not fit enough. He's lost that real deep desire to play and to score goals. Because, as Craig says, at his peak and when he is moving and grooving, there are few better at finishing.
That's right, and James McPake, his old teammate, has offered him an olive branch, hasn't he? He said, look, come here, come and play your football, come and score goals for us. Hopefully you'll be happy. Everybody, when they're happy, they play better. You've got to be relaxed. There's no point being anxious all the time. And the game's changed. Craigs will tell you, the game's changed now. You look at someone like Scott Brown, who's still playing at 35 and playing really well, fitness levels. He's looked after himself. He's adapted from 10, 12 years ago when he was first coming through. And when you get beyond 30 as well, Rob, you've got to really knuckle down and look at the sports science, how they can help you in any way. With myself, I was always a little bit heavy in my shorts. I like the pint. I enjoyed a bit of food here and there, a bit extra. Martin O'Reilly used to put me on the scales and he could find me if I was overweight, things like this. But back then, the sports science wasn't really around and it wasn't really focused on as much as it is today. You have got to know you can't carry a pound today. You wear the heart monitors. They actually video now, Rob, the training sessions, and they measure how much work you've done in training. Everything, your work rate, your running back, your sprints, how much you walk. And I just think, Leigh, when you're 24, 25, 26, you can play in that era because you're young. You can get about your energy levels. When you go past a certain age, you need to do that little bit more, concentrate on your diet and the science. And, Leigh, it's passed him by a little bit in terms of that side of the game. But he's 31 and hopefully, as I said, he can save his career by going and playing for Dundee. And I do believe you don't lose that knack of scoring goals. No. I do think he will score goals. I might be wrong. I said at the start of the season, he'll score 25 goals for Celtic if he's given the game time.
Yeah.
But if he hits double figures for Dundee and Dundee stay in the Scottish Premiership last season, that sign is gonna be the best thing that Dundee have ever done.
It could make a massive difference to Dundee's season, really, and what you expect they can achieve. Because when you look around outside of Rangers and Celtic, how many teams will have a striker who can get into, say, 15 to 20 goals a season? Now Leigh Griffiths is capable if he gets the service at Dundee. That would make a massive difference to what they can do.
Huge. And having watched Dundee in the early part of the season, the one thing they are is they're open and they're attacking. They want to go and win games. They're not a team who have come up and have said, but you know what, we're going to sit in and we're going to grind this out. We're going to be horrible to play against and horrible to watch and hope to stay in the division. They're going to take risks. They're going to leave themselves exposed at the back. They're going to get players forward. They've got attacking players. They've got people with good delivery from set plays. They've got pace. And Paul McMullen, Paul McGowan's a hard-working midfield player. Charlie Adam, I think he went off at the weekend, but good range of passing. So there's going to be chances created for him. And I think that's probably what James McPake has lacked, is a real finisher to complete the moves that they've been building. So you get Leigh Griffiths into that, and a fit Leigh Griffiths, because I've got to say, I watched him a couple of weeks ago after they played Hartson in the Cup, and he done some running after the game. And I get it's the most demotivating thing you can do as a footballer sometimes, is when the team have played and the game's over and you got to go and run. But he was miles behind the players he was running with. So he needs to get himself conditioned so he can go and play. Otherwise, injuries pop up, fitness worries, and suddenly you can fall behind a little bit. So Penny has to drop, get himself fit. If he plays in that Dundee side and chances are created, the one thing you know is he'll score goals. Will James McPake change his shape? Will he play with two centre forwards and allow him to be the foil off a bigger, more physical, more hard-working centre forward so he picks up the scraps? That's what James has to find out. But if he can get enough good balls in the areas for Leigh Griffiths, he will score goals. And you're right, Rob, that could be the difference between not battling for 10th and 11th, but possibly pushing for top 6.
Tell Alexa to launch Go Radio or listen on the Go Radio app.